We don't realize how emotions are the most crucial data points in decision making. It's just that we don't understand them. We can't put it on a spreadsheet. So we have to really sometimes look at emotions and take a plunge. And emotions are one of the reasons why people don't take a plunge, because it is the fear of the unknown and the fear of not being in control. And many people don't take a plunge just because of that fear. कि यार मुझे पता नहीं paycheck कहाँ से आएगा. And that causes a lot of anxiety, and anxiety is an emotion, and we don't want to be called a failure.
So I think you can plan it in different ways and not make it an all or nothing game. Right? It's just like fitness, right? You can do this incrementally, you can experiment. And I think that's been my biggest learning, right? Don't make your decisions all black or white. There is no black or white in any decision. It's not a plunge, it's not a jump, it's not something drastic, it's not any of that. It can be a series of steps that lead to your answer in a very meandering way. And, it can be okay.
Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast series with Second Innings. My name is Atul Nath, and with me is Suman Ghosh. We are your hosts for this podcast. While each of our work journeys till now has been quite different, looking forward and ahead, our paths could be far more aligned due to similarities in what we are now seeking. Purpose, passion, and joy are far more important to us now. As we have been speaking to more and more people about this, it's becoming amply clear to both of us that this topic really resonates with most people. In this particular podcast series, we learn from the people we're talking to who have made a successful transition to their own second innings. And today we have two really cool guests with us for this particular episode. Let me introduce you to them. Stuthi is the founder of Urban Venture Labs, a venture studio for cities. She is an eternal urban optimist, aiming to move the needle at the intersection of technology, innovation, and community-led action. She has worked in 3 continents and transitioned from management consulting to corporate strategy to social and climate impact over the last 27 years. Welcome, Stuthi, and thank you so much for your time. Our other guest this afternoon, Dr. Rakesh Godhwani. Rakesh is the founder of the School of Meaningful Experiences. I'm hoping to talk to him a lot about that, to learn more about that. The school offers programs for teenagers that help them become more confident, communicative, curious, creative, collaborative, and competent. Rakesh has written multiple books and has recently launched his own podcast too. Prior to this, Rakesh has worked in Wipro, Intel, and Qualcomm before he took the plunge to pursue his passion in teaching and writing. He is an alumnus of NIT Karnataka, IIM Bangalore, and the Cardiff Metropolitan University. Thank you very much for being here with us, Rakesh. Thank you to both of you. I'm just going to kick this off by requesting you, Stuthi, to talk a little about yourself and tell us interesting stuff about your past.
Sure. Thanks, Atul and Suman, for having me here, and great to meet you again, Rakesh. So I thought I'd start with the origin story just to give some background and perspective. So I was born in Chennai and lost my dad at the age of 4. And this was a pretty big thing because he died in a plane crash, so unexpected. Mom was 38, 2 older sisters who were 8 and 12 years older than me. So I think that has defined a lot of what my life has been, and I think the paths I've taken. And interestingly, I was reflecting on this while thinking about this podcast and said, I felt like I had a very pampered childhood, lived with maternal grandparents and mom, very few, material possessions, but just super pampered, right? I literally used to come home at 1 and get fed by hand by my grandmother because it was too warm. But I think the difference in age between my siblings and me made the fact that they grew up with a fair bit of affluence, with a dad who was, in a multinational company. I grew up with very little, and I've seen how that's affected our attitude towards money, for instance, right? But grew up super independent, used to cycle to school, tons of activities, so dancer, karate, craft, drama lead, all of that stuff, very CBS, it was a state board school, so very much all-round development, and I think that's also been an influence. Studying was easy, did great in exams, state rank holder, so the path was very well defined, right? Are you going to do engineering or are you going to do medicine? That was the only two options. Yeah, so that was me. I think lovely childhood, made me quite nostalgic to think about how we used to sit outside in Chennai and enjoy the sea breeze every evening and go for our walks and, don't remember a pizza or a burger till maybe I was in 11th grade. So you kind of made me want to go back to those simpler times. But
I think the part that I'd be a little interested in hearing more about from you, Stuti, is how do you see those years connecting with where you're at right now in terms of the choices you've made in your life related to your work and your career?
Mhm.
Do you see any, connect the dots moments from the past to where you are now?
I think, to be honest, had to be a significant rethink from that path, which happened much later in life, because it was a very traditional path of studying, working, probably getting married, all those expectations growing up. So I think it's kind of had to have been, it was almost a 180 degree shift to where I am today. However, I think the constant was absolutely unstinting family support for all of my choices, right? It was, I think, a very liberal household from that perspective. And even if nobody understands why I do the things I do, nobody questions it, right? So there's always support, and that's, and a fairly tight nuclear family. We were not one of those extended families where your chacha and chachi and somebody else had a point of view on your life or how you lead it. It was mom, grandparents, two sisters, brother-in-law, nieces, nephew. That is our world. And we just don't really worry too much about anybody else in our decision making. So I think a big shift from what that path looked like, but with just a lot of support.
Rakesh, over to you. Would love to hear a little bit about you and the origin years, as Stuti called them. That will be interesting to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So I come from a family of doctors. My lunch tables were 4 doctors and me. I was the youngest. So that shaped a lot of my decision-making systems because the conversations were all about medical college, hospitals, and I could see that all 4 of them loved their work. So that was a very big part of what I saw, that connecting with your work, at least I learned from my childhood, from my parents. They loved their jobs. Both my parents were academic doctors. They were not practitioners, so they were in the medical college teaching. My elder brother and bhabi were studying in the medical college, and they were very clear that they'll practice. But they loved it. I remember conversations where my bhaiya, bhabi, papa, mummy would talk about that, hey, we saw this amazing case today. And for me, it was gory, but for them, it was amazing. And I think I made my first decision, these guys are super boring and I'm not going to be like them. So when you're in a small town, making career choices, I think the first decision was कि doctor नहीं बनूंगा. So that leaves very little to think through. So you're left with 2 choices. Either you take up commerce, and we are not a business family. So commerce didn't sound the right thought process. So that left only one choice in those days. And this is 1988, and a boy could not think of taking arts. And, again, and I'm glad that those days are reducing. They're not gone, but they're reducing in our country. And I'm happy to see boys taking arts and girls taking science. It was very different in those days. So I could not take arts, and not that I was a great artist. I think I was supposed to draw an apple and I drew a square and I got an F. So that was my arts career right there. And so there's math, and you have a singular path if you take math in our country, which is write the engineering exam, and I did not know about any other engineering exam except my state board. In my class 11th, my neighbor and a very close friend was talking about IIT, Agarwal, ye sab chal raha tha. And I looked at that curriculum and I thought, ki boss, ye apan se to hoga. So I've been strangely at peace with my mediocrity. That yeah, I'm quite mediocre. I am not gonna get into these tough competitive exams. So let's find the path where I can achieve what I have to do next. And it was very clear, ki boss, you do 12th, there's a state entrance exam. State entrance exams allows you to go to some colleges, and now comes the second decision process, ki boss, which college? And you laugh at my decision making systems, but this is true and I'm not kidding. There were 26 regional colleges that the state allows you to go to. So I was in the west of India. You could choose any college in the other 26, 27 states. So there were 26 colleges, and I made my decision on a college which was in Tamil Nadu called Trichy. And don't ask me why. I think it sounded sexy. You know, imagine the sound Trichy. Years, I'm like, boss, padhenge to isi college mein padhenge. And my brother's friend was in that college, so he kind of also he's now in US. We joke about it these days. He said, "Ki yaar Rakesh, hum to subah se sham party karte hain," and I'm like, "Wow, this is the kind of college you should go." And so I was all set, Trichy, and I decided computers padhenge. I mean, that also was a decision. And why computers? Because there was Jurassic Park in those days. And Jurassic Park had a scene where dinosaurs are chasing. Now you have to lock the doors. And I think it was Samuel Jackson or the girl. And the girl says, this is Unix system. And she click, click, click. And the doors close. And I'm like, wow, this is the engineering we must study. So very clear decision making. Boss, Trichy, computers. And luck had other chances. And I actually came to a college which is not Trichy, it was Surathkal. And why I, in the last minute of my counseling, took a decision and I chose Surathkal. I didn't even know where it is. But somebody said, counseling mein ghusne se pehle, ki yaar ye college beach pe hai. And I'm like, wow, well, this is the kind of college we should study in. So within like few minutes, I changed my change of Trichy to Surathkal, a college on the beach, got my computers, and then had to figure out ki ab Surathkal kahan hai. So then we had to work backwards, and then we found out it's in Karnataka. You have to go to Mangalore, and then from there you have to go to Surathkal. So my childhood was to sum up, a very privileged childhood. I'm lucky to be part of a family who didn't really bother me much, but always loved me, always cared for me. And my decision systems are very stupid decision systems. In fact, one thing I tell everyone, ki boss, whatever you do, don't decide like me, because it has been very lucky for me, and it may not be as lucky as you are. So from that part, we'll talk more. But my childhood was very good because we stayed in medical college campuses. So so we would play together. We had access to a swimming pool in the 1980s, a lawn tennis court. Not easy for a child in India to say that we had it, but I consider myself extremely privileged, which became the foundation of my thought process. That I always felt that if this is the kind of gift my country and society has given, I cannot do something which is only what I want. I have to do something which is connected to a larger good, a larger reason. And then I think that's when I look back, my decisions of coming into education come from. And the fact that my parents are also teachers, my extended family, we have teacher in every house. I always gravitated more towards people who were with books, though I never read. I came to reading much later. So I find myself as a person who is aging reverse. I'm actually doing those things that I should have done in childhood. I'm reading more. I'm now listening to music more. I'm now doing things that I like to enjoy more, which I should have been there, done that. So that's a big summary of my childhood and my thoughts of decisions and career.
I was reading about you, and in your own words, you said that you read a story to your kids every night before they sleep, and you bicycle to work whenever you can. And I know Stuti loves to do stuff like this as well with her nieces, nephews, and cycling and everything is very important to her. And you also mentioned that you will probably earn a fraction of what you used to, but live a million times better, which is which are words to live by. That's absolutely amazing to hear. um, you clearly took a very important set of decisions, and I like the way you were saying that your decision making process is, I don't remember the word you used, but weird and different, and you don't recommend it to the people that you talk to. But in the process of deciding to give up, corporate life and doing what you love, how did that decision making how long did that take you? What came first? The fact that you'd had enough of corporate life, or you wanted to do stuff you love, or what? I mean, or the fact that, like you said, that you felt that you are so privileged that you wanted to do something meaningful, of value. So in that, what came first and what came later?
Yeah, that's a topic I have done a lot of work because my first book came out of those experiences. So I was at the prime of my career. So after my engineering college, I got a lovely job in Wipro, Bangalore. Went to US, didn't like it, joined Intel India, one of the first employees, and my career took off because we were the only few left in the country. Everybody else was in America. And I was very clear I'm going to be in India, extremely patriotic in my thought processes, not political though, but very connected to the society. So I was very clear India, and Bangalore was nice. I met my wife. Our first born happened. That was a time I was offered to go anywhere. That, okay, boss, you're on the fast track leadership curve. You pick a country and go. And I could go to, at that time, I was going to Japan and China a lot. I was heading Asia Pacific. I did a part-time MBA course, and for the record, I always say it very openly, cat वैट मेरे बस की बात नहीं है. मैंने वो देखा था, and very quickly I knew कि ये करना भी नहीं है, and not that I am capable also. मुझे ना बैंक में जाना है, ना consultant बनना है, and somehow I've been a person that if everybody would stand in a queue, I'll find some window to get inside. So I've been a very lazy human being in my thought processes. So that helped. So I was very clear कि MBA वगैरह करना नहीं है. सब लोग GRA दे रहे थे, वो भी करना नहीं है. So I was very clear कि काम करना है. I was enjoying it. I was getting extremely good career opportunities. And by the age of 27, I was a very reasonably on the path of becoming a very senior guy very soon, unless I did something terribly stupid, which I didn't. And IIM Bangalore helped me a lot. The 3-year MBA program was amazing, and it gave me that worldview, and I shot to more senior positions, and Qualcomm Mumbai picked me up, and that was the first turning point that I chose that job because I was getting closer to my dean. When you're doing an MBA and engineering ki boss, vice president, director, business class, 5-star dinners, economic times में नाम आना चाहिए, और आया मेरा. I mean, in 2004 I was in economic times. So, but honestly, Atul and Suman and Stuti, that's where the first big thing happened, that I reached that point and I was extremely disillusioned with that life. I found it very boring. I found it extremely meaningless, and I could not live like that. In fact, that's where that thought come कि boss क्या कर रहे हो अपनी जिंदगी के साथ? I mean, one more meeting, one more plane, one more promotion, and ठीक है चलो एक गाड़ी खरीद ली, क्या तीर मार लिया तुमने? And that dialogue
Rakesh, Rakesh, how old were you at this time?
I was 28, 27, 28.
Brilliant. That is quite cool. All right, please carry on.
Please don't credit me for that. I think I was just lucky. I was at the right place at the right time. Nothing more than that. So I would question myself, and I met lots of people. One of my, if I look back at consistent things that I do, consistently when I was a 5-year-old kid to now I'm going to be 15 the next couple of years, I've always done one consistent thing, that I've had friends twice my age. Not today, but when I was 5, I had friendships of 10. When I was 20, I had friendships of 40 years. So their wisdom would shape my thoughts. So when I was 27, I had friends of 55 and 60, and I would meet them and they would all say, ki yaar, we all did our corporate stuff, theek hai, paisa kama liya, lekin we are not happy. And that's where it all started, that I started to start looking at what do I want to do? What are my interests? And Qualcomm was the time when I was so disillusioned, not because of the job. It was a lovely job. I was one of the highest paid human beings in India. There was a report that was published and my name was there. I was one of those names at IIM Bangalore alumni circles would be said, ki, haan, this program won alumni. And I don't think I enjoyed that. So I had a second job. I was a teacher from 1999. So I started teaching people how to speak, because when I was working in the corporate world, my career became better because I was able to communicate, talk, connect. And somebody trained me. I was not by birth a person like that. So everybody was focusing on CAT, GRE, JE. I was focusing on how to speak better. How do I connect better? Movies shaped me a lot. So movies like Anand had profound impact in my life. And, a person is about to die. What decisions does that person take? Had a profound impact on my decision systems. And that's where I started to say that there's a larger purpose than just going to a job. And my weekend job of a teacher was fun. I was teaching at all kinds of colleges, including IIM Bangalore. My professors would help me. So these two jobs were the starting point. That weekday I was in Qualcomm, weekend I was a teacher. And one day I remember it was May 2008. I had come back from San Diego and I sat down on the beach, and I could afford a house on Bandra. So I sat down on the joggers park and reflected on my life. And it was very clear that I'm in the wrong industry. I love teaching. I love working with students. I enjoy working and teaching, and communication was the core area. So I knew I was in the wrong industry. So I decided that I'm not going to wait till 55 or 60. I'm going to do what I am doing now. So at 30, I think I was 30 at that time, or 31, I resigned. It was 30th May. And I said, I'm going to devote the rest of my time on communication, teaching, any classroom. And then that's how the plunge, that's where the word plunge came in. And somebody said, how do you take the plunge? That was the name of the book and the podcast that you saw.
Right. Okay, I'm going to jump across to you, Stuti. Knowing you and knowing your story a little bit, I know you've made some interesting decisions over the years. So I'd love to hear about your crazy decisions that you've made, career related and meaning related, if I can call it that.
Yeah. I think at some point that so-called Chinese proverb, maybe live interesting lives, was the only way to justify, some of the choices we make. So interestingly, Rakesh, even my questioning happened at the age of 27. So like I said, I was pretty much, had done this whole business school. Are you day one or day two? Big disappointments based on how you got placed or not. I had gotten married to somebody that I met in engineering college. And to be honest, that was a bit of a trigger because I started thinking that I wanted to see more of the world. And this was at, when I was 24, 25. He didn't. We're still great friends, which is, awesome. But I said, you know what? I kind of feel like I was in this meeting for the company I was working for with a tiny gems product. And I thought FMCG marketing was going to be what I do. And, my biggest disappointment was it was not Unilever, it was Cadbury's, right? So there was all this pre-done hierarchies and structures that the world has given you, right? Like the number of people who even now, 30 years later, will be like, you got A and B and you went to Bangalore and you didn't go to Ahmedabad. So all of these hierarchies are so conditioned in our heads, right? So, wow, it was only Cadbury's. And I was in this 9-hour meeting where the color of gems was changing a little because the guar gum was changing, right? And I just kind of had a meltdown at the end of that day and said, really, like, this is what my life is going to be about. So that's when I started questioning even the FMCG track. Still was very much saying corporate, but some of the corporate, moved to IBM on like their fast track program. Same thing, Rakesh, treated brilliantly, 15 people flying to Japan and all of that stuff. But at some point there, I started getting interested in the space of saying technology and policy. So I went back to a master's in the US. It also really helped me because I was kind of saying, I've lived this life in India. It's been Chennai, Coimbatore. Anytime there was a bigger choice like BITS Pilani or Ahmedabad, mom would say, no, I can't come and visit you. I was making these very narrow choices, right? And so I said, you know what? I'm ready to make some broader choices in life. So I took a loan, didn't have enough savings to go to Carnegie Mellon, got a TA, got some sponsorships, but still had to take a loan, and went to study public policy there. And public policy there was interesting, but sadly, or well, at the end of it, I had 5 job offers. One of them happened to be McKinsey. So, 10 months into that investment was played out really well on that education. And, I was not, and Atul and Doc can really testify, but this was nowhere in the McKinsey set in, IIM Bangalore. So again, it was still that same hierarchy in my head, right? There was more thinking of what did I want or what am I looking to do? At 26, it was still very much, wow, if you've got it into McKinsey, where is the question of looking at something else? So, I joined McKinsey in the New York office. The US melted down in 2001 when I graduated, still had our offers. We were a year in. All of our work was cost-cutting work. 70% of the batch was let go of in that 1 year. I just was a year and a half in, and I said, I'm at the pinnacle of success as far as what's been defined by me, for me, by being in McKinsey in the New York office. I was having a fabulous life in New York, 5-star dinners, business class, all of that fun stuff. First class, the first time I think I went to first class, I literally couldn't stop telling everybody about it, right? And I was like, what is this work I'm doing? Isn't this supposed to make me feel good? And I'm feeling terrible about it, right? Like I don't enjoy the work. And I think that was the first time in 2001. So like I was almost 29 when I said, I even questioned this hierarchy that had been kind of in my head, right? So I convinced them, since we were very few left standing in the batch, I said, I want to take a sabbatical. I'm going to look up a volunteering organization, and will a partner support me to take that sabbatical? Unpaid sabbatical, so you're suddenly giving up your job. But in between, before I had joined McKinsey, I spent the summer in Spain. So I think my world was broadening a little more, like with every experience. Like I spent a summer in Spain learning Spanish, traveling by myself, all these things that I thought I wouldn't do. Like I should have been married to my, Tamil Brahmin fellow, and by now I should have been thinking about babies. And instead I'm like learning Spanish and, kind of backpacking Spain. So I think it just kept, broadening a little at a time without you even noticing that it's happening. And was awesome. So experience-wise, living in New York, making your first dollar paycheck, traveling, beginning to travel solo was all great. But the work first question came, when at McKinsey. I think if it had been a smaller firm, if it had been anything else, I might have just said, this is all, corporate is. It just felt like this is supposed to be the best that consulting offers. And if this is what it is, then something's wrong, right? So I went away to Tanzania for a year. I backpacked East Africa as part of the assignment. I was working on a WHO project. I was teaching sociology in the college there. And, I kind of felt like, hey, this feels more meaningful, right? Still had no idea what about it felt more meaningful, because I was, I was playing volleyball for like 8 hours and cross-country cycling. So maybe that was what made it feel good. But something said, this feels better. Still no framework, no decision. Married sisters with children not working, no family reference to say, hey, this is good or not. In my family circles, we are overeducated, all the women. We don't work for a living. Money is not a thing in our community, right? It's like, please go get as many degrees as you can and then learn Bharatanatyam and you're done. You're kind of sorted. So I think, I came back from there saying, don't see myself living in Africa. I had a job then in Sierra Leone from population services at the end of that. But I said, I can't see myself living there. I still love New York. But I want to do something more meaningful, right? I don't want to be like working with the big banks. At some point you start questioning the basic math of you just let go of 100 people. That's what a consulting team costed for the month, right? So somehow the math stopped working for me, right, of what I was doing. Took a 60% pay cut. Started working with a lot of ex-McKinsey people. Started working consulting for the UN and World Bank. Said, oh my gosh, this bureaucracy is worse than like the big banks, right? So I can't really say, for a very long time in my life, I don't think I had a clear decision-making framework or a reference set of people to chat about this with or any of that, right? It's been a lot of trial and error and time spent on it and me questioning if I wasted time, trying these various things. But that was my first trigger of somehow this pure corporate is just not the best use of my time in life. That was what, and from 2003, it's been a varying set of experiments and things that I can make sound good now in any story, but really was at that time no clue, experiments till I would say maybe 2016, right? Just no clue.
Stuti, I'm just going to try with both you and Rakesh. I'm going to try and peel another layer of the onion and ask you that both of you had this, I would call it, maybe it's a realization, I don't know, but this thought in your head that I need something more, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you've had enough and more peers. Rakesh has had enough and more peers, both in the workplace and in your schools and colleges and friends and so on. Why do you think this lightning struck you, but it doesn't strike others? It does strike some others. You're not unique in that sense. There are many like each of us. Why do you think, what was it about you and your thought process, your feeling, your emotion? What brought it to you?
Yeah, so I just want to say one thing before Stuti responds. I heard both of your stories, both fascinating, yet there are quite a few similarities. I think one being that you had the realization pretty early on. And of course, the 5 stars and the business class, even the first class, is a commonality. Which is triggering me to think maybe my realization didn't come because I wasn't used to those business class and first classes. And so my job was much more mundane. In fact, talking of jobs, my first job before I went to IIM was in Cadbury's, by the way, Stuti. And I was in the factory. And guess what? I used to be in charge of gems. Okay? And I used to make gems. And I never tell anybody about it because I think it was nothing to talk about. But I did mention it to my kids when they were really small. And they thought, I was the coolest dad making gems here. But within a few years, that wore off. So right now, I don't tell anybody.
You were number 2 to Willy Wonka, basically.
Yeah. I was very popular in my Cadbury's days among children too.
Yeah, so I think, go ahead and answer what Atul was saying.
For me, one thing I feel was money was never an aspiration, right? Never has it been in my list of things to worry about or things, think about saying here is a number or to think about saying I need this much, because there's never been anything I really, really wanted to buy that I felt I can't be without, right? There literally wasn't, right? Never. It's like that business class was fine. It got you quicker somewhere. It was cool for a bit. So that was one thing. I think the second thing feels like I wonder why. If you ask my mother, she'd say you just peaked too early, right? She'll be like, everything just came too easy to you. Like state ranks without studying, all 4 IIMs without anything, something like. She said everything just came easy to you, so you didn't value it. So I can't give you an answer, but that's her hypothesis on this. But it is a little, right? Because in my thinking at that point, it was like, as long as there was something to strive for and struggle for, or like, that you can see up there was something to do. And I think it helped that really, like, you're theoretically at the top management consulting firm, right? Because then you really say, really, it's like, if you went up to the top of Everest and then you felt, oh my God, like, why bother? This view is shit. Then I'm guessing you're not mountaineering again. I don't know, could be that.
I think there may also be a factor of, and we'll go to Rakesh after this, but Stuthi, there may also be a factor of you found something, or felt something about something much stronger than what you had, which is travel, for example, which is discovery, for example. You very, very clearly said twice, once when you went to the US to study, and then when you went to Spain and to Africa, that you wanted to widen your horizon, so to speak. So, when something trumps what you have at an emotional level, very often, and all of us speak to so many friends, we tend to very often subdue the emotions for the practical and the cognitive, and say, this is the right thing to do. Get the feeling, but there'll be lots of time to do that. We'll travel the world once we've got enough money, right? You just decided to go with that feeling and that emotion which you felt strongly about, and I think that's to your credit for sure. But I think there's a very strong factor there. You were driven by your feelings rather than the cognitive part. Rakesh, all yours. Please enlighten us on your feeling. Why do you think lightning struck you rather than somebody else, many others?
So I'll give you a perspective on the question, and the question is, why did the lightning strike me and not others? My perspective is, lightning strikes to everyone. Few people do something about it. And I'll give you 2 examples. This question of finding the right purpose has been time immemorial question. Gautam Buddha, Siddhartha, he had a privileged life. One day is traveling and looks at life and, man, this is not what I want to do, and does something about it. He was not the only prince who had these thoughts. There were millions of other princes worldwide doing it. They probably said, yaar, chodo yaar, let's just live life and move on. So, in the last 15 years of leaving the corporate and becoming a full-time academic teacher on hire, in all my classrooms, whether I'm teaching CXOs, managers, MBA students, or youngsters, I think the moment this question comes, what do I do with my life? Public lecture nahi sunti hai, ye sunti hai. And I'll give you another example. There's a movie called Soul, and I bring a lot of movies because I think my ideas have been shaped by movies and books, and you'll see this in every movie. A movie is actually a story of a character trying to find their own path and their own destination. So the movie Soul is, first of all, a children's animation movie. And it talks about this whole concept of finding your purpose. There cannot be a more difficult topic than this. And they did it so well with animation. And in that, by the way, have the 3 of you seen this movie Soul?
No.
Soul? You must watch it. Homework for all of you. So, and watch it together if you can. It's mind blowing. So it's about this guy who's a pianist, a jazz pianist in New York. His purpose is jazz, piano, and he dies. And he goes to the other side where there are souls. And he's like, boss, my life has just begun. I have to go back. and it's a journey of souls, and one soul doesn't want to come to earth. So the story is about this guy who's a soul there. He's like, why don't you want to go to earth? And this soul says, I have no clue what I want to do there. And that's the whole concept we are also discussing here, right? So I think in each of us, we have this question. And in that movie, there is the scene where they go to a barber shop. There cannot be anything more mundane than a barber shop. And there, when the barber and this guy, his name is Joe, they start talking about their career choices, everybody listens to them in deafening silence. Because everybody, whether you're a housewife or a child or an old man or anybody, that's the only question that nags you every day. You may subdue it. You may say कि कल देखते हैं. But this question will bubble up. It comes back to the existential question, who am I and what's my purpose? And if you look at all classrooms, this is what the jobs of teachers nowadays is, that anybody can teach AI, ML, communication, Python, but the teacher helps you find that path, which will help you find that purpose in life. So in my case, I think the only thing I can tell you is that while I had a family where we would talk these things very openly, my father told me कि यार, I also want to do lots of things in life, but नहीं कर पाया because मेरे को अपनी बहनों की शादी करनी थी. Life was very different for people like us. I didn't have the luxury of calling a Plunge. And Kung Fu Panda had the same thing. Po, the panda, decides to do Kung Fu, but his adopted father says, no, I will make noodles because that's what I think I'm for. So all of us deep inside know. In fact, I was the head of alumni for 7 years, and I think I've met more than 6,000-7,000 alumni. I stayed in their homes. This is the only topic we would discuss. And सब लोग मेरे को यही बोलते थे कि यार MBA तो कर लिया, I'm so unhappy. तूने कैसे plunge लिया बता? And I'm like, boss, I'm not the authority in this. I just probably made a stupid decision to do it. That's all. And I still have strong friendships. That's how I know Suman, and we are connected here. Stuthi and I probably also interacted. Thanks a lot for that. And so the point I'm trying to make is, everybody wants to know the answer to the question, मैं क्या करूं अपनी life का? And getting into colleges sometimes makes us realize that this is not my destination. I think I have to do more. And till the day you die, you will end up finding that. So then the theories end up, and there are good books. I read a lot on this topic. The book called Flow talks about it. This guy, Ken Richardson, has written a book called Element. He talks about it. His TED Talks are full of this. And it connects with my subject, communication. And I always say that a person who's very clear what they want to do in life will also communicate very clearly. And the problem in communication is not that people are not smart communicators. They're all over the place. They're just confused. So the moment you become clearer, तुम्हारे words भी clear हो जाएंगे. So that's how I would like to answer that question. That सबको याद आता है, पर सब लोग, just like, the coffee का cup खत्म हो जाता है, the topic also is postponed to the next coffee. And then it starts all over again.
I think very well said, Rakesh. If you use that metaphor of lightning striking you, while I'm hearing from you that most people are talking about it, but the number of people who actually take the plunge is relatively small, right? So let's dig a little deeper into this. Taking the plunge itself. In that book you mentioned in Plunge, that this book is basically for people who feel lost, who are frustrated, or who feel trapped in an organization, and you want to do something meaningful. Okay. Now there are two parts. If you're feeling trapped and all, that's more of a push factor. You want to get out. Whereas if something else is pulling you into something, some purpose, that's the pull factor. So let's analyze a little bit about the pull and push, right? How much is important? Because I think that makes a big difference as to really whether people will really take that jump or not. Right? So maybe I'll start with you, Rakesh. For you, when you actually took the plunge, talk a little bit about how much was the pull and how much was push.
So in my case, again, if I reflect back, and thanks to your podcast, I actually started to think back what worked well, how did it all happen. I must confess that there were days I would be like, oh shit, I think I made the biggest blunder of my life, because you're answerable to your family. And when you do see your friends buying their sixth house, and it does impact you.
Yeah.
And and I am a shameless voyeur on Facebook, so I look at their photographs on their foreign visits. I'm like, God, यहाँ पर तो मैं बैंगलोर छोड़ के मैसूर भी नहीं जा पाता हूँ. And I have a lovely family who are okay with that. So we are human beings, emotions आते हैं. So I'll come to your question. In my case, it was a very clear reason that I decided. I did not know enough about this topic, and I was 31. उस समय खून भी गर्म था. I don't think today I would have been able to do this. Knowing what I know and where I am at stage in life, I think when you are younger, you are brash. Brashness in this journey sometimes helps, because you're so focused on what you want to achieve that the other triggers you tend to ignore. Like many people said कि यार मत कर, teaching में पैसा नहीं है. And it is true, नहीं है पैसा. And but नहीं, हम तो घुसेंगे, टीचर बनेंगे. And once you are in that path, the second thing that happened in my case is that I'm not a person who goes back. I've always been a person who would just keep moving forward. So एक बार छोड़ दिया, छोड़ दिया. This is my flaw. I don't teach this in my class. I tell them कि ये जो attitude है कि मैं वापस नहीं मुड़ूंगा is a bad attitude, because I have made mistakes. I think you should have the humility of putting your tail in your legs and say कि गलती हो गई, वापस ले लो. And there were times I wanted to do that. So that could be the second factor. And the other thing that probably happened was one starting thing which kept me going was, would I enjoy my classrooms? Like when you take a plunge into something you like, it could also be an infatuation, which is what I saw with all my students who took a plunge, didn't like it, and went back. So many of my students left McKinsey because they said, sir, I'm inspired by you and many more. I now want to do it. Within 6 months, they realized कि ये नहीं होगा उनसे, and they went back. And I would ask them, tell me why you went back. And the answer would come, sir, I thought that this was my passion, plunge, but मजा नहीं आया. To me, that became the thread that I also talk about, that if you wake up in the morning and there's a classroom and you're excited to go inside that classroom, which is why I left the corporate world, I think you're on the right track. Then you have to just find out how to pay bills and other admin issues. So in my case, it is 15th year, 16th year now. I too love it. I'm like addicted to my classes. If I don't go to classes, I get into a withdrawal symptom, like that movie Apocalypse Now. That guy was in the hotel room drinking himself to death because he had no war to go to. And I'm that kind of a person. And my wife is very similar. She left everything to become a Kathak dancer. And if she doesn't dance and if I don't teach, we start behaving very badly.
Nice.
And to me, that's what I tell others, that if, let's say, you've decided to be whatever, measure yourself only on one thing, that does it excite you? I don't even use the word passion anymore. I say, does it excite you? Does your eyes light up when you're doing that thing? So my wife is dancing, I'm teaching, I'm writing, my eyes lit up. If that happens, the other things are easier to manage. पर ऐसा नहीं है कि this path of plunge is super sexy और हम लोग तो खुशी से बावले हो रहे हैं, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं. It is a harrowing job. It is full of depression and nightmares. And the only way you can move forward is you're happy, or at least you're excited doing what you decided to. Otherwise, it's the same.
So what I'm hearing is that it was obviously a pull, and that pull was very clear to you, right? Unlike some of the people who might think it's a pull, but it's something it seems to be.
Yeah.
Because I don't see there was much of a push. You were doing well in your career, so there was no push per se, right? It was entirely pull. Okay?
Yeah, completely.
Super. But that also makes it even more difficult to take the plunge, which is fascinating that you actually could do that.
Yeah, and not just there, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but 5 years ago when I finished a PhD, I decided not to apply for tenure. And I became an entrepreneur. One more, stupid decision when it comes to how an entrepreneur goes through. I mean, it has not been easy, but I'm alive 6 years. Somehow this is the headquarter of School of Meaningful Experiences. कुछ कुछ करके हो जाता है. But again, the same thing that I wake up कि आज class है, we have to do something. In fact, I have a class at 4 o'clock. So it just keeps me excited, and one more day.
No, I completely resonate with that. In fact, and I can relate to that because when I took the plunge, it was similar. For years I would ask myself, have I taken the right decision? And it's about, somebody told me that, you either be in the room or in the lobby, right? You decide where you want to be, because those are the only two places that matter. So if you're in the lobby, if you're a good marketing guy, do that. But I like to be in the rooms, and I think that excitement is very important. Stuti, what about you? How much of push versus pull?
So, interestingly, I have this kind of conversation with, at least at any point in my life, with 10 to 15 women, anywhere between the age of 35 and, 55, right? Who are, and to be honest, I think still the expectation on women in India is not that you'll be the primary breadwinner, that you are managing. So there's a lot less pressure, in a sense, on women. Maybe it's changing in the next generation. And, I would say out of that, probably 30, 35 of them who've had these conversations with me, asked how I did this, 2 have taken the plunge. One is a niece, doctoral from Harvard, who's now working part-time with the federal government after giving up Google, and the rest of the time she's an artist, right? And the other is also somebody that, so look, I think there are 3 bits to it, right? I think there's a bit which is, what is the problem you want to be solving for in the world? And often when I've asked the others, what is it that, what is the problem you want to be solving? Not even like I don't even say what excites you, because I find a lot of things very exciting for the first 6 months, and then I'm like, what the hell happened here? But what is the problem you think you want to solve in the world? There's a second bit is, what is the role you want to play in life, at work? How do you want to engage? And I think there's a third bit in our careers or our work, at least, not the rest of life, but which is, what is the validation or impact you want, right? That makes you happy, that feels like you've done well. And often, this is not, I read like maybe 30 books on the topic, over many years, but, this is how I distilled it for myself. And I find that for many people, that first question, I was just having this conversation with an engineering batchmate in the Valley who's done a bunch of technology, just left Amazon, and she's looking for her next tech product management job at the age of 52, and says, I'm worried about money. And I'm like, you're joking, right? Send me your Excel, I'll look at it and come back to you. And I was like, you don't have kids, you're not married, what the hell are you going on about? Like, do you want to donate like money to me, right? But secondly, she is like, I think I'm good at this. I can't think of what else I want to do. So I think if you don't have an alternative problem that you want to solve for, and you're, like you said, there's no push, nobody is treating you terribly. It's like the paycheck is coming in, everything is going on okay. There are highs, there are lows, but there are more highs and lows in an entrepreneurial journey or in, these off the beaten path. So I think you really need something that you begin to care about, that you begin to engage with. And then you say, what is the role I want to play in this problem, right? Do I want to be the researcher? Do I want to be the teacher? Do I want to be a practitioner? What is the role I want to play that solves for this problem? Because those also come with very different skill sets. And I think that's only where you should ask about the skill set match, right? You should ask that question in the problem, because the problems in the world are huge. Any of us can make a difference with anything, right? And the third thing, I think, in the third part of your impactful role, in corporate, it's easy to judge, right? You've either got that promotion or you've not. Somebody's got 8% pay hike, you've got 14% pay hike. Kuch na kuch hierarchy hai. And remember, you can play that same game solving for world poverty at Rockefeller also. It's a different question to what problem you're solving and your engagement model, right? So I think if your validation comes from external, larger things, it's hard being an entrepreneur because it takes a while. Atul can probably relate to that. You're not going to get immediate validation, paycheck ka increase nahi hai, still so many paychecks to pay. So I think that might define, how you think about it. So for me, it became that, right? The push was not, the push was, why am I spending my time doing this? Nothing else, right? All the other external indicators were good. I was doing really well at McKinsey, which really surprised me, to be honest. I mean, that I could fake it, right, for like 3 years straight, right? But it became what problem, kind of viscerally like hit me every time I come across them. And that kind of for me became just inequality, right? Saying over time it's become environment plus inequality, but it just became, how can there be so much progress and there be widening inequality, right? So that became something I started reading about, thinking about, engaging in advisories, engaging in pro bono work, engaging on boards about, and started developing more of a thesis on, right? So yeah, and the ones I think who've not left their jobs, I have this conversation every year that I go meet a very dear friend in Edinburgh who works in tech delivery and is a published author. And she says, I don't know. I don't like this job. I don't like this P1, P2 Saturday resolve issues. But I don't know what is the other thing that I care deeply about. I love writing, but I'm publishing. Right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's that.
You make really, really good points. And, see if one of those, we keep reading about follow your passion, and Rakesh was trying to avoid the passion word. Follow your passion, discover your passion. I think some of this is related to the fact that some people just are not very clear on what their passion is, and you can use whatever word you like in place of passion. Something that excites you, something that you believe in, something that drives you, whatever that is. If that becomes strong enough at an emotional level, then possibly, I mean, like you were talking about that friend who's, none of us have seen a spreadsheet, but it's pretty clear it's a very healthy spreadsheet. And yet she wants to make it healthier, right? And the reality is all of us are so superbly privileged. None of us are going to go hungry in the near future. None of us. Forget about us. Even our kids are not going to. All of us in the last 25 years, because of the way India developed and the world developed and all of us got opportunities, the reality is that all of us have managed to do pretty much greater than what we probably thought 25 years ago, financially and monetarily, right? So I don't think anybody can make the case for I need to make more money. I don't think that case can be made here. I think that should be okay. But it's never enough. That putting that aside for a moment. So I'm just saying that, that passion, how you discover it, how you find it, how you build it. And I think that drives that really is a very important part of being able to make this shift or take the plunge or whatever we're talking about.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that at an absolute scale, nobody's going hungry. But also it's a matter of, how you are looking at it, right? What's your perspective? If your locus of control is more external, then it's bothering you that somebody else is, going by whatever, going to exotic places, whereas you are going to Chikmagalur, right? So again, I think it requires a fair bit of reframing also, and one needs to be content with what they have, isn't it? Okay, so I again come back to this taking this plunge, because that's really, I think, the toughest step, right? And that's what I call the hot state versus cold state. The cold state is all very rational. You've got your Excel. It's a very, extremely left brain thing. But when you have to actually take the plunge, there's a whole bunch of emotions, right, that go through us. So talk to us a little bit about the emotions that were going through you, even maybe before you took the plunge. What were you telling yourself? Anyone? So what was the hot state like?
I'll take it up. Before the plunge, the emotions were of unrest. Restlessness is a better word, maybe. a sense of, you feel there's a strange vacuum in your life. I think that's what happened with me. And this will surprise you, an extreme sense of boredom. I was bored with my job. I found it hilarious sometimes. Again, not to say that the job was bad or the company. They were very good people, very good jobs. In all humility, they are brilliant people. They made ton of money now. Qualcomm, I mean, brilliant company. Intel, Wipro. But I just found that in that 9 hours, I would be bored. So there is this sense of fatigue that comes in, and that mental state of tiredness, that I'm always busy, but there's nothing that is productive. So I would actually feel sometimes very responsible that I'm not contributing enough. And so those mix of feelings, plus the fact that I was living in a suitcase, not meeting with my family. So a combination of loneliness, that theek hai, matlab, I just met 40 CEOs who come in economic times, but I'm still alone. And living in a brilliant Taj Mansingh, watching television. You cannot have a more boring life than that. And I was in San Diego when that final decision of resigning came. And I was looking at this lovely garden, and all I saw was a family playing together. And I was like, my God. And here I am sitting all alone with the most expensive wine. And, so I used to be a great connoisseur of wines and food and cigars. All of that, I don't even look these days. And I was looking at this family playing together. And I think that was the moment that I said, this is it. I think there's more to life than just being in a job and measuring yourself on successes. There's emotions. And I really want to be with my son, my wife. I want to do things that make me come alive, because the emotions I was feeling was exactly the opposite. This was pre the plunge. During the plunge, I must tell you, I got very lucky that I am Bangalore. I have great friendships. I continue to have great friendships. The new director was trying to build new structures, and I had written a proposal of alumni relationships in 2004. And he met me and he said कि तुमने ही लिखा है, तुम ही करो. So I said कि ठीक है, मैं कर लेता हूँ, I'm available. And I also am a person who always feels that अगर करना है तो करो, वरना बात मत करो. So I would talk a lot about alumni. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I mean, I'm happy to. And I know this because I've built, this is what I Am Bangalore trains you to do. You can get things done. So I did that, and it was an amazing 7-year, brilliant chapter of my life, which shaped my plunge. I think I am what I am because of those 7 years of friendships, including all of you. And I don't think I would have been able to come where I am without those amazing 7 years of alumni, faculty, and the institution supporting me. So that happened, and that gave me an intense view of academia, which is the third thing that I realized, that academia is just like a corporate. The people there are also having the same emotions of disillusionment, boredom, and fatigue. And I'm like, boss, I'm not going to become a tenured anywhere. I'm going to just do what I do. So I have been, and I'm glad you asked this question, because we don't realize how emotions are the most crucial data points in decision making. It's just that we don't understand them. We can't put it on a spreadsheet. So we have to really sometimes look at emotions and take a plunge. And emotions are one of the reasons why people don't take a plunge, because it is the fear of the unknown and the fear of not being in control. And many people don't take a plunge just because of that fear. कि यार मुझे पता नहीं paycheck कहाँ से आएगा. And that causes a lot of anxiety, and anxiety is an emotion, and we don't want to be called a failure. और फिर हमारे इंडिया में every person has two fears. One is some uncle will say कि मैंने तेरे को बोला था मत कर, and you don't want that uncle to come true. And it could be one auntie also, right? I told you so. You hate. And the second fear is the fear of being called a failure. And because our societies have been built on proving that we are smart, which is we have more marks, more ranks, these are the two critical emotions that don't cause us to take a plunge. कि बस देखते हैं 50-55 तक फिर देखा जाए.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. Fully agree on those 2 points about uncles also. For me, it was uncles. There are a lot of people like that who kept on telling me. And I think you talked of fear. That's very important because most of us are gripped with this, some kind of fear of failure, for instance. I was personally gripped with the fear of failure. Interestingly, what happened is that fear never went away. But it got overtaken by another fear of regret. I said, you know what? It shouldn't happen that I retire and then look back and said, I should have done something, right? So at some point, it just overtook, and that was one of the emotions that was going through. Great. Stuthi, what was your emotions like?
I'm a bit of a risk taker in life. So, I'm the type of person who will can't swim really well, but will jump, from a ship into the water with a life vest. I remember this time I was in Africa and I'm standing in this line for bungee jumping, and a lot of people go there, overthink, come back. I'm like, 1, 2, 3, jump. Right? Don't let your mind, this 5-second rule, don't let any part of your brain start thinking. So I think for me, the jump or the plunge was not even in my mind a plunge. Right? It was just a different choice I was making for my time with a different set of potential outcomes and income. I didn't even overthink that, right? I think all the emotional roller coaster has happened after. To Rakesh's point, the bureaucracy is not very different because the problem you're solving is different. It's not like suddenly you're with this combination of people who are all driven by mission and zeal and nothing else matters to them. It's not like the young kids come into work on time and are super motivated. Nothing is really that different other than what is the problem you're solving for, right? So that took a lot of getting used to, right? Because you're like, I've given up McKinsey. Of course, I'm going to make a difference in 1 million lives in India in the next 5 years. Kuch hota nahi, right? This is, and that takes a lot of learning, a lot of bringing you back to size, a lot of, angst at, I thought the impact will be this much, nahi hua. Maybe I should have done this differently. So there is a lot of questioning that's going on even now. 2003 is when I left pure corporate. I did jump into a corporate-like role with an impact angle even when I moved to India. And people judge, certain things, right? They'll be like, you moved to Lodha, so you jumped to corporate. No, I moved to Lodha with a very different mandate to do low-cost housing. It happened to be that I was making a lot of money while I was thinking through that. So I think you can plan it in different ways and not make it an all or nothing game, right? It's just like fitness, right? You can do this incrementally. You can experiment. And I think that's been my biggest learning, right? Don't make your decisions all black or white. There is no black or white in any decisions. It's not a plunge. It's not a jump. It's not something drastic. It's not any of that. It can be a series of steps that lead to your answer in a very meandering way. And, it can be okay. To all your points about failure, and I keep saying this, there are these trigger moments, right, where reunions being one of them, or a party at somebody's house where they're talking about the houses people live in. You have to start. So I do Vipassana, right? So for me, chasing emotions and giving up chasing emotions is a very big part of this, right? Of this journey, saying this is long haul. Don't get excited by the highs. Don't get drawn down by the lows. Don't make this into drama, right? Just, learn to breathe, learn to do your stuff. And I think, I think once in a while, ask yourself a little without emotion the question of, on my worst day, am I questioning why I'm doing this, right? And not how I'm doing it, but why I'm doing it. And so I have, I think, a few set of questions and tools in my head when emotion takes over, whether highs or lows, to just bring it back and say, ठीक है, use your emotion for something else. Use those highs and lows for something else in life. And for this, just come to an even keel.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being able to manage your emotions is an important aspect, is what I hear you saying. Go ahead, Suman.
Yeah, one is manage emotion. I also like this thing about, if you're telling yourself I'm taking the plunge, you're kind of making it a black or white. Whereas you're saying don't do that, don't overthink it. Just think of it as a journey as to, what is it. But you also need to have the vision as to where I want to go, right? Yeah.
We've always found that the financial preparation piece is something which is something that people plan for prior to even thinking about this. And some people like to think of it in a very analytical manner of an Excel sheet. Some people just do it by the seat of their pants, as long as they feel largely comfortable. We had one conversation where, we were talking to someone and he was like, as long as I had a home in the city that I wanted to live in, I felt that I was covered enough to be able to do what I wanted to. I'd love to hear from both of you, in terms of what is the thought process you went through once you kind of decided that this is what I want to do. I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. I'll be happier doing something else. From a financial numbers perspective, how did you kind of approach the challenge? Stuthi?
Sure. So again, there was no plunge moment for me where I said, this would be my retirement corpus in corporate and this will be my retirement corpus if I, started doing stuff I like. So that was great, because if I had done the maths then, I would have never taken this decision, right? But there were 2 times in this journey that I actually did a few things thinking about the financials. I think the biggest for me was reading The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, right? Because I think this is not about money. It's about your relationship with money, right? You can be, math only gets you so far, right? To this very point that Atul made about a home. I don't own a home. I never intend to own a home in my life. And for me, it's very simple. I want to travel the world. I want to live wherever I can. Bangalore rental yields are 2%. I'm like, there is no logical math to buy a home, right? But for somebody for whom a home represents stability, security, I've got the home behind me. Now it's okay if I take a plunge. You first have to understand yourself and your relationship with that home and money before doing any maths, right? So the first time around, I just did math. I said, here's how much I have in savings. Let's see. But it was also a little bit of the arrogance of youth. Let's see, we don't know what opportunity will come in the future. They take time. The second time that I really sat down about the money was during COVID, because I went into complete volunteering mode. I signed up for Living My Promise to give away at least 50% of my wealth. I've been giving for 25 years, but 3-4% of my annual income. Annual income wasn't happening. So now what? So this time around, I actually went about it in a more organized manner where I had kind of absorbed a lot of this about what is my relationship with money, and it's an easy relationship, so that makes it easy. But also to sit down and say, I don't think it's about money. It's about what is the lifestyle you want, one, for the now. And most people, after looking at the math, will either say, I think I'll do more. Once I retire, I will travel more. I will, I want that extra money to do more interesting things. I've always priced that into my life, so life is easy. The second thing people will say, and I run an actual retirement calculator for a bunch of women who I have these conversations with, right? It's really interesting to see their feedback. The second will say, what if something really terrible happens? Right? What if I get cancer? What if this happens? And I'm like, can't price this in. We can try with insurance, but we don't know if they'll eventually pay or call it pre-existing. And really, for like, when I spend 10 years with cancer, I'll be kind of looking to how to end this rather than do I have enough money to keep myself going, right? Obviously, very different when you have children, but it, in a sense, even with children, it's some of those principles of saying, a lot of the Living My Promise people will say, or even my brother-in-law said, I'll take you till undergrad, and I'll get you debt-free out of undergrad in the US. After that, you figure it out, right? So there's no, I'm leaving a lot behind for a child. Warren Buffett said this beautifully, right? I want to give them enough to do anything that they want, but not so much that they will do nothing. Right? So I think those things are important. So I think I've really read a lot to understand my relationship with money. So Your Time or Your Money is a book. Psychology of Money, I think, is really seminal in this. Live Richly is a newer book, more about health spam. Die with Zero is a new sensation, but not enjoying it. There's just a lot out there. The FIRE movement, Reddit, by the way, in India is a revelation. The Reddit threads on FIRE, how some of the 25-year-olds are talking about money, etc. So one, I think just get used to your money, and I think do math. I know it feels nice to say I won't, I'll keep it in my head. I think figuring out the amount is okay. How you invest is important, right? Because if you don't have, I've had friends who've left corporate and, have come back and said, I'm not getting that monthly paycheck. This is freaking me out, right? Easy answer. Do a automated sweep in every month of how much you need, right, from your investments. So I think you have to put in some mechanisms in your portfolio and in how money flows so that it doesn't cause angst and a decision question every month or every 6 months. Go into autopilot on that. That's what I did, over time, starting in 16, but I would say mostly in 2021, where I don't think about it. Once a quarter, it's on my calendar, look at portfolio. I trade stocks for 10% for fun of my portfolio, of my net worth for fun. And that's it. Big decisions are asset heavy and, kind of this travel experience light. If you kind of moved away from corporate, there is a trade-off, right? I went the thing of asset light, experience heavy. I spend as much in OPEX, just in rent and living in Bangalore in a year as I spend in travel in a year, right? So 50% split. Don't own a home, don't own a car. So yes, these are all questions, trade-offs, decisions. First, understand your relationship, do the math, just makes it easier, and you don't keep revisiting and re-questioning yourself. You really then, I can see a mansion in Bombay that a batchmate lives in. I'm like, I was in Armenia last month. So, but it's what's important to you. You might like that mansion because you entertain at home. Just figure out, what it is and do the math for it.
So one tactical question, Stuti, since you also run this actuarial calculator you mentioned. So how does one go about it? Like, probably it also depends on the stage of life you're in. Let's say somebody who's in the mid-40s to mid-50s. Mm-hmm. Do they look for a corpus which will, see them through the rest of their life? Or are they saying, hey, you know what, I want to take a plunge and, hopefully it will take, not 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years. But as long as I'm okay financially for 5 years, after that, I know that there'll be a steady income coming in. So how long do you plan for?
I think it's great to do a scenario of both. So you can actually, say, and of course you can revisit it as you continue with life and see what's changing. If you feel like I'm ready and I'm going to take the plunge or I'm going to move away from corporate, and if it feels like a really big decision to you, right? I would say plan it as a corpus because these calculators now are FIRE ready, right? Which means they're ready for people who are quitting before the age of 40. Right? So they are looking at your corpus and saying, how much OPEX, and based on the mix of equity and thing, if at all you have US investments like I do, there's a fantastic app called FiCalc that backtests your corpus against the last, 50 years of data available of US debt and equity markets, and will say, what is the probability you will fail based on, because you can look, part of this whole, I don't know what's going to happen to the market next year. With backtested for 50 years and you're still, 95% okay. You're probably going to be okay unless you are an eternal pessimist, in which case you probably should not take any plunge. You should just get on with life any which ways, right? So yeah, I think you can do the math even on any day, whatever age you are, with whatever money you have. It's really an understanding of your lifestyle requirements, which is the biggest input. And the biggest variables that mess around are nothing to do with any of this. It's inflation and investment returns. And for that, that's what I keep saying. Why are you overthinking everything in this? हमें पता नहीं 4 is it 4% inflation or 6% and that will change your math dramatically. But chalega, right? So some people say that, right? I say my largest expense item is locked in at 5% inflation because it's rent, right? So whatever it is, it's not. There is, you try and remove the emotion from money. Understanding yourself. Once you come to Excel stage, please stick with Excel stage and don't then revisit the emotion. It's. So yeah. So
Easier said than done, but great advice. Yeah, very good advice.
I think talking of variables, what COVID also taught us is that one variable is also how long you live, right? Which we don't factor in.
So funny, right? Exactly. So all of us used to put in 80 to 85 into the retirement calculator. Yeah. And only the US publishes all this, right? Because they use it for insurance, actuaries and all that. I had just increased my calculator about 6 months ago to 94. Right? So 94. And I think we'll start seeing some products, right? We'll start seeing reverse mortgages in India. We'll see products that realize people are living way much longer than we used to. But, you should, the math gives you comfort.
Yeah.
Right? It gives you no need to make this overtly emotional. And for me, the 2021 question came, and once, I went back to consulting to McKinsey in India because I was scared about the corpus, right? Which was in 2013, right? And then I said, so I would keep jumping back and forth till I did the math properly in a calculator that I felt covered everything, right? Because I would be like, oh, now market has gone down. Oh, okay, let me go consult for 2 months with a McKinsey or corporate. So you keep doing, and that's okay if you've said that's my model. But if you said, no, I'm focusing on something, but then you're kind of going back and forth because market is falling, then you're in trouble. So I think that's why it's helped this time taking a really long view, but also developing a portfolio that takes that long view, right? Index funds, this, that. So I've got a kind of note on it now saying if you're firing and if you're in India and if you're doing all this, I keep telling people move some of your money overseas. We are depreciating 13% year on year. Just do simple things that are sensible, right? And get on with life, right? But yeah, it's a prickly wrong.
Great. Rakesh, would you like to share your financial preparation?
So Stuti has given such nice ideas. I'll probably add on to that and just request everybody who may listen to your podcast is that the misconception of financial security is a very different question. I think that's what Stuti very nicely said, that it's not about money, it's about the relationship with money. So I would encourage everyone to not think of this as a very binary discussion, like the current financial products that are coming in the market. The promise is the same bad promise that education companies gave, right? कि आप हमारे पास आ जाओ and चांद पे जाओगे. I think that's what these companies are also now trying to say. कि you come and do this, and at 40, and I've been following because one of my very close friends who was documented in Plunge is now one of the biggest names of stock market analysis in India. And he's there in my book, and I had documented him in 2010. So, so his video is now viral that you must have a 30 times your current spend as your corpus. That 30 can be 40 or 90, doesn't really matter. But what is happening is that we are not realizing that you can never get enough of money in one lifetime. But that's the whole race that we all have to realize. So in my case, I actually did a little different thing. I cut my expenses. I went frugal. I and my family decided not to spend because we couldn't afford. And my request to everyone I teach this topic is that the discussion is not that I'm going to take a plunge and maintain my lifestyle. The discussion is that you'll have to let go of something. You decide what is that. And most of the time, people are always confused of not sacrificing their lifestyles. According to me, that is where the problem is. That you can't have everything. And you can't bake your cake and eat it too. So, we made a conscious choice कि हम लोग foreign trip नहीं करेंगे, करते भी नहीं थे, 5 star में नहीं जाएंगे, कपड़े ज़्यादा नहीं खरीदेंगे. So we made financial choices, and I think when I took a plunge, I just had 1 year of buffer because I had some stocks from Intel, Qualcomm. They were doing okay at that time. I had some savings, mutual funds, उस समय डाले थे. I broke my last fixed deposit for SOME, my venture. My children don't get anything. My 3 children have to struggle on their own. My elder one is already struggling on his own. And now we have 2 more. But I also must tell you that this is where faith plays a very big role. There were times I had nothing in my bank. And I had a bill to pay, and I was not sleeping at night. कि कहाँ से पैसा आएगा? But some miracle happens, and that's what is the leap of faith that we must also look into. That this discussion requires faith. Deep inside you, कुछ ना कुछ होगा. अब वो क्यों होगा is the karma theory. So अगर तुमने कुछ अच्छा काम किया है तो अच्छा ही होगा. Now that's where things get very different. So coming back to your question, my financial planning was a 1 year financial.
That may be a different discussion for a different day.
Yeah, मेरा तो उसी में ही काम चलता है. So it's been.
Superb,
I think I've seen.
I like that.
I've stared at a empty bank balance more than 4 times in the last 15 years.
Wow.
And it is horrendous
That's true
experience.
faith.
Yeah, that is faith.
No, that's
And
also true
somewhere
faith.
some SMS comes that this came in, and I'm like, okay, bill paid, move on. So that's how I've been surviving on that. But I've been very poor on it. And one of my requests to everyone is, please do better financial management. It is not easy to live in cities like Bangalore. Schools are expensive. Healthcare is expensive. वहाँ पे faith नहीं चलता है, वहाँ पे card चलता है. And you have to be prepared for all of that. I think when you take a plunge, a very big thing that happens is you really start depending on your instincts more. Something that you don't realize you have when you have a month-on-month paycheck coming in. So what happens is, this is the game of confidence, that what kind of a person will do very well in this space is, it's all about confidence. A person who says, I can do it, I'll figure it out, will actually figure it out. But many of us are not trained with that. And School of Meaningful Experiences deals with this topic, that even CXOs don't have confidence. They are just there because of their Ivy League status and luck. And when they take a plunge to do many things, they realize that they don't have the confidence and the necessary soft skills that they should be having. And networking is right there, that just because you are from a great college, don't assume everything will work for you. And you have to connect, you have to talk, you have to meet. Beyond the point, it's about what happens on the streets. So your instincts take over, and then you realize a world waiting for you to embrace. And it's a beautiful world. It's actually absolutely mind-blowing what all you can do there.
Super. Very well said. Rakesh, we'd like to have you to the end of the show. I also know you have to run in a minute. So let's do a quick rapid fire. What is the one advice that you'd like to give to somebody who's thinking of doing something different, who wants to pivot? What would be your advice to them?
So my recommendation is, don't think binary 0 and 1. Do part-time stuff. Like if you like something, don't leave your job, do it on the weekends. So you get the best of both worlds, and ask yourself, is this something which is an infatuation or a real true excitement? And then make your decision based on that. So ease into the discussion, ease into the decision rather than a 0 and 1.
Great. Stuti, what would be?
Same thing, just learning from the life design book. So, using principles of design thinking, they say, run these mini experiments, right? So I've got 5 things that I think I want to do. Shadow people for a day, go do a little project in this pro bono. There are, lots of different ways to engage and see the interest holds. When I shadow this guy doing this work on the ground, oh my God, I can't see myself doing this, right? And that is one thing I didn't do when I started. It was trial by error. So you can do this during your job or take a sabbatical, do it. Don't put pressure on yourself. Take some time and find, by running these mini experiments.
Great. That was lovely. Thank you so much, Stuti and Rakesh. Atul, would you like to say something before we close?
Not at all. Thank you, both of you. Really appreciate your time and your openness. Much appreciated. And we hope to stay connected with both of you through our journey and talk more about this stuff over the next few months, years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.